Good one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. YouTube.com/GeekLoud. Thursday night, 8 p.m. Gaming Enforcement Agency. YouTube.com/GeekLoud. I'm joined, of course, in the second slot tonight is Unky Dunky, the thief. How you doing?
Number 2, baby. I'm back.
Moments before the show, Bully was in that second slot, but he had it stolen. Bully, welcome to the third slot this evening.
Can't steal something
Well,
that's never yours.
Well, I got it last week, and I was trying to hold on to it, and I don't know. I'm just devastated. I'm not sure I can carry on at this point.
well, you consider whether you can carry on, mate. I'll tell the fine viewers out there the run of show. First up is games, interrogation, and deliberation. It's 6 games and 1 TV show that we've been all about this week. We will go hands-on, in-depth. There'll be footage rolling over that side of me, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. And then we're into the newsroom studio. Unky Dunky, how many newsrooms did you kick in this evening? How many stories?
No, we've got 7 stories tonight. It's been a pretty busy week for stories, so it's been hard to sort of pick and choose what's here. So, hopefully you enjoy the ones I've found.
The best of the best, the cream of the crop, no doubt. Speaking of which, then we have the standoffs. Unky, what are the standoff constraints this evening?
Mate, this evening, this one might hit home for Troy. With Wo Long having one of the toughest first bosses to ever round out a tutorial, we're going to ask, what is the best or most fun, slightly easier tutorial boss fight that we've had? And we have a 10 in the standoff tonight, Troy.
Excellent. 7, 7, 10. And then it's over to the audience integration. That's right. You there watching live in that YouTube stream have the ability to comment in the chat section the whole night. Questions, comments about what we're discussing, flick them up. Bully, I charge you, sir, with being on patrol in that YouTube chat and bringing us those hot comments in live. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me. Hopefully I can jump on a few more after we were missing one member last week who may have deframed me from that middle screen.
Last week we were running on sticky tape and rust, my friend. I'm glad we even got the wreckage over the finish line. I think that was a phenomenal effort in itself. And then, of course, anyone out there listening on podcast services after the fact, this was recorded live and live streamed on YouTube, 8 p.m. Thursday nights on Geek Aloud. You should come along and join us because what we start with, as always, is games, interrogation, and deliberation. First up this evening, it's the episode 8 of HBO's The Last of Us. Boys, what a phenomenal episode. Unky, please, mate, give us the details.
Mate, we've had bloaters, we've had clickers, but this episode gave us the biggest monster of all, a pedophile cannibal named David. And my God,
wait. Are you saying he was a bit too PC?
No, he's easily the worst person we've had on this show. It's the fact that they added the layer of him previously being a teacher. I think they laid that on real thick that this guy is a pure evil. So I'm happy to survive a Holocaust as long as I never come across this guy because he'd probably be dead quicker than a clicker, I reckon.
Fair enough, man. And I've got to ask you, who was his incredibly charismatic sidekick? That man could have led the show, I feel.
He could almost play the main character of the game, you would have thought. That was Mr. Troy Baker playing Buddy Boy, a.k.a. James, in the show. So they fleshed out Buddy Boy from the game as David's sort of right-hand henchman. I thought they did a really good job with that character and creating sort of the juxtaposition of him sort of not wanting to be there but kind of just having to be because he didn't want to sort of be offside. So there was moments in that episode there where they just sort of play with the idea of, them all eating the soup and around the table, and he sort of didn't really want to eat it, but then got a look from David, and he kind of just had to. And that whole soup scene is just the way the episode opens with the whole, it's too cold to bury your dad now, and we'll wait till the spring. And then we all know, as people who have played the game, that that soup they're eating is not venison. And I thought that was just a very uneasy way to do it. And I think the way they sort of hold it back a little bit. So for people that know, the others are probably sort of maybe speculating. If you've ever watched Walking Dead or even played the Walking Dead game, they sort of play with cannibalism a little bit in the zombie tropes. But I thought they did really well holding back on that. And I just think, again, just like last episode, Bella Ramsey in this episode, she is just absolutely smashing it as Ellie now. I am absolutely loving everything she's doing.
Her top-tier performance, every scene of the show to date is her in the prison cell breaking old mate's finger. Number one, best bit of acting we've seen from her. And it's been top-notch the whole time. That one takes the cake.
Yeah, I wasn't on last week when we were speaking about the DLC Left Behind episode, where I thought she just showed so many different layers in that episode of being fun and like a child when it came to the escalator, and then sort of getting serious when sort of Riley was going to tell her that she was going to leave, and the anger she portrayed. Then it was just perfect acting from this girl. She's got the stuff when it comes to portraying any character I think she's going to play. So I can understand why they've cast her. And anyone that sort of said that she's not right to play Ellie is completely wrong, because at this point in the show, I'm completely sold on her. I think her version of Ellie actually leads better into the second season that we're going to get. And I actually believe this girl could actually kick ass, because she's one tough girl. And the first Ellie in game one wasn't like that. So
I agree, mate. Now that you've seen it and you've seen her chops, who are you casting as Abby in season 2?
Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I think, has got the physique for that. Just whack a wig on him, mate. He's good to go. No, but this episode is probably, I think, one of the closest we've actually stuck to the video game portion of the game. It's such a great sort of part of that game, and such a well-known aspect of that game where you're sort of playing as Ellie. And I think they really, again, just nailed home that bond between Ellie and Joel. And I think by the time you get to the end of the episode, it's, Ellie saved Joel, but then
over
Joel
the shoulders at the end.
Mate, if you ever want to get tears when he holds her and does the old baby girl and does the whole Sarah baby girl at her, that got me. And I was speaking to a lot of people at work, and they were of the same opinion. When he dropped that line, it tugged at the heartstrings, and that sort of cemented their bond as more than just some cargo that he's trying to get from point A to point B. Like this is now his surrogate daughter.
Yep. And point of order on the penicillin that he was getting pumped into his stomach. If you have 2 liters of penicillin pumped in 8 hours, would that actually kill you, do you think? She was giving him some big syringes full of the penicillin straight to the main vein.
She really was. I'm not sure how medicine works and stuff like that, but I dare say I don't know if just pumping penicillin into a wound is going to heal you. But I mean, he took a little while to come good for that. And I just really love the way they played with his vulnerability. Then the fact that the way he had to stab that guy in the neck the first time, and he really
how good was that?
He just had to hold on to it, and he was just using any strength he could just to make sure that guy went down. I thought that was brilliantly done. I thought the torture scene right out of the game was brilliantly done as well. It's finally giving us the Joel that we know we need to get before we get that last episode as well. Otherwise, if we didn't have any sort of lead up, you kind of, hang on a sec, Joel hasn't been, too full on when it comes to his violence and stuff up to this point. But I think to get this episode leading into the next episode, I think that really sets the foundation really nicely, not only for their relationship, which is going to obviously show why he wants to do what he's going to do, but then the fact that he is capable of doing those things as well. So I just think this episode was just a brilliant way to sort of lead into next week's episode. And
I agree, mate.
Sure, but Troy Baker was great as the James character.
He was. Can I ask you, because you weren't here last week, Bully and I already sounded off on it, but where do you think they're going to leave? Like, next week is the final episode. Are they going to roll credits where the game rolled credits, or are they going to move the finish line, do you think, one way or the other?
No, it'll finish exactly like the game. I think the directors have come out and already said that this is going to be the game in TV form. So it's going to finish where the game finishes. I think, as far as I know, it's not even a longer episode. I think you guys were speaking about how it was supposed to be a 10-episode show, and sort of speculated this last episode might be double in length. But I think the 10-episode thing came from that first episode, which we got that was much longer than the others. I think that was put into one episode as opposed to 2. So I think from looking, it was a while ago now. I haven't seen anything updated, but I actually think the last episode had the shortest runtime of the lot. So they've got a fair bit to cram in there, but I know they can do it with the way they've sort of edited stuff throughout this show. Even in this one, David and Ellie, the way they're getting to know each other is, instead of the game where you've got like a horde of zombies coming in, they fight them off. This is just a nice, simple conversation, and I think the back and forth between those two actually lends itself to better character development and developing their relationship before it sort of turns south. I think it did really well with the little jokes about going from a teacher to a preacher line. I thought was quite clever from Ellie, and the sort of, she lowers her, so she's holding the gun up, and sort of as they're having these sort of moments of levity and joking, she sort of lowers the gun a little bit. And they do play with that. Is David good? Is he bad? He sends Troy Baker away, James away to get the medicine. He's like, I'm not talking in code, just do it. Tells him to look with a gun, lets her leave, does all that stuff. So the viewers who don't know the game are thinking, is this guy good? Is he bad? And I really like the layer of the whole preacher thing, and being the surrogate father to this group. And it's as soon as he slaps that girl in the thing, you're like, no, he's a bad dude. Then offers the hand to pick her up. I'm like, this guy, they're not. they're not hiding the fact that this guy is bad. And then when he calls Ellie the C word, I was like, there we go. It's HBO now. we're calling 14-year-old girls the C word. Now we're on. So
it was wild. Bully, what are your thoughts on the app, mate?
I sort of agree with what Unky said. It's funny because when you talk about it being sort of as the most closely aligned to the game itself, but they did skip out those action segments. And I sort of thought going through as I was watching the episode, hopefully we get this or this that goes into it as well. But then they've cut it all out. But I agree with you. It made the episode, apart from that little bit at the end where Joel was sort of getting himself out of the house and stabbing the bloke, it was really almost devoid of any of that violent sort of confrontation up until that point. And then obviously what happens with Ellie at the end in the lodge. So you went almost, half to 3/4 of the show with very little violence in it. It was just about exactly what you said, Unky, that character development, the back and forth and not having that stuff in there. But in terms of the game itself, when I went and captured the footage that you can see on screen now, I did it I think it was the night after I watched the episode, and I was sitting there listening to the dialogue, when Ellie first meets them out in the woods. And the dialogue is almost word for word what's in. I'm thinking, hang on. I had to go back and listen to the show again and go, no, that's exactly spot on as to what they were saying, almost word for word.
That's great.
So there was, which having not played the game what did I replayed about 2 months ago? So you sort of just forget those little, minute to minute sort of beats, I guess, over time. That you pick up again when you're watching the show, and then obviously playing it again 24 hours to get the footage. You just sort of pick that stuff up. But I really enjoy it. Again, I don't know. Agree with Unky. I don't know how they're going to fit the remainder of the first game in the last episode, especially if it's going to be a bit shorter in length. So again, it'd be interesting to see how they do it. But the reality is, what are we, 8 episodes in? And I don't think they've really faltered once. So the reality is, whatever direction they're going in, I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job of it, and can't wait to see it. And then, hopefully we get a release time for season 2.
Have they announced they've announced they've commissioned it, but have they announced a start date for production?
I reckon I heard somewhere that they're in pre-production already for it.
Yeah, right.
Which means they've probably already cast Abby, but I've got no idea who that'd be. And again, it'd be very interesting, and probably, especially for fans of the game, probably depending on who they pick, again, the same as what we had with Ellie, is it's probably going to be pretty controversial, irrespective of who they pick, whether they go, overly masculine or too effeminate, or however it is that they sort of play it out. It'd be really interesting to see how they get there. But again, can't wait. Yep.
I was going to say she'd obviously be the wrong age, but if I could, it'd be Ronda Rousey.
She very much does look like her.
So that's as I say, it's fantastic. I can't wait for the next episode. What do we got? 4 or 5 days to go to see the season finale. And to be honest, I'll be a bit sad when it does end, because I've become, obviously we get it in Monday afternoon Australian time, so it sort of drops. By the time I've got personal stuff and family life out of the way, and then you sit down Monday night, and that sort of kicks off your week, basically watching the episode of Last of It for the last 8 or 9 weeks. So I will miss it going forward, and hopefully, as you said, if they're in pre-production, they're not too far away from recording, and then hopefully later this year or early next year we get the next season.
I reckon you could bank on a same start date. What was it, early Jan? No, early Feb, excuse me. I reckon it'll be early Feb next year. We'll see part 2.
Well, it's 15th of Jan, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. No, that does sound right. I reckon it'll be the same date next year or thereabouts. My only question for the next episode, crystal ball gazing, guys, do you think we're going to see Joel similar to Darth Vader in Rogue One right at the end, where he just walks down the corridor and decimates people?
Well, mate, if it's going to go by the game, I think that's going to be something very similar. I think it'll be a little bit more grounded in realism than that, but I think it's going to be quite brutal, I think, going by what we've seen this week.
I love it. So excited. Any final points from anyone, or should we move on to game 2?
My only final point is just tacking on to what Bully said about being like it's going to be hard not having that there on a Monday night. For me, it's sort of been the Tuesday walking into work and that water cooler moment. Just all of it, like everyone at work's been watching. Even the people that don't know the game have been watching. We just all discussed The Last of Us. It's just been great around, just a show that everyone's loving.
Not that you'll be able to get a community on board, mate, but I've recently, as in the last week, just started watching Lost again from the start. And that game, season 1 of that TV show, holds up beautifully. So I'd recommend diving backwards into Lost. Maybe once we're finished with The Last of Us. All right, game 2 this evening is over to you, Bully, for some Tiny Troopers Global Ops launched today on PS5.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to get a code for this one. I jumped into it early in the week and had a bit of a play. It's a follow-up to about a 10-year-old game, Tiny Troopers. Can't remember the
It was iOS and Android, was it, the original?
Yeah, the back half of the title on that one. But look, it's a twin stick shooter is probably the best way to describe it. And if you haven't seen it or want to have a look at it, make sure you jump on the channel because there's an install and a Let's Play that we've thrown up there in the last day or two of it. It's sort of interesting. It's a bit quirky. You can see on the screen there, it's sort of got a cartoony sort of vibe to it as opposed to, most twin stick shooters that you get on especially console and stuff when you talk about Hotline Miami and Dead Nation and those sort of games that are like brutally violent sort of twin stick shooters. This is just a bit of it's almost, as I said, cartoony fun. There's no gratuitous violence. It's just a bit of a giggle, to be honest with you. And
kid-friendly twin stick shooter.
Yeah, and it's designed primarily. I only played it single player, where you can get a companion that'll help you out, but it's designed for multiplayer. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out if you get a couple of friends in there that you can sort of maneuver yourself around. Because I found even fairly on in the second or third level that I was playing, it does get fairly hectic when you're doing it by yourself, and especially when you sort of get surrounded and swarmed, you really need a second person to sort of coordinate with, where one of you can jump on one side or the top or bottom of the screen or left or right, however you work it out, just to sort of start clearing the enemies. Otherwise, you just become overwhelmed really quickly. You have nowhere to go, and you just lose your health. But it's
Can
also
I ask you, mate? Just on the mechanics with you when you're single player and your AI co-op companion, just a heads up really for anyone out there who plays it, you've got to manually repurchase, if you will, like in-game currency, that character. I reloaded the level a couple of times, couldn't work out why I was then trying to solo it and only lasting half as long. But then you've got to go back out to the headquarters, go into the barracks and hire somebody else. Back to you, Bully.
Yeah, and I think it's got like a quasi-permanent death mode type thing to it in respect of your companions. So once they die, they're dead. So you can play with them and you get that experience with them. But if they die, that as you said, you have to go back and basically hire someone else to go out with you. So it sort of adds that bit of finality to it once your offside is dead. But there's a little bit of an upgrade tree with weapons and skill set and stuff like that. But it's not overly confusing, and there's not a lot in there, to be honest with you. It's just you unlock essentially currency within the game depending on how quickly you work through the level and how quickly, or you sort of string enemy defeats together in, as well as picking up things around the screen. So look, I don't know about playing it long-term first person. I think it'd be a good game if you had a couple of people that wanted to jump into it and were into that sort of twin stick shooter thing. But as mentioned, it's probably aimed at a younger audience, just with the graphical style and that sort of stuff. So that's probably the only reason I'd recommend it, I would have thought. If you're just going to, as I said, if you're going to sit there and try and play it yourself, I don't think it's really that type of game, unless you're a massive twin stick shooter fan and you're desperately hanging out for something.
It is a lot of fun. I am a twin stick shooter fan. I can see myself eking through the single player offline co-op, but I can confirm my 9-year-old went hands-on with this and had a blast playing it as well. So to your point, very kid-friendly, and it resonates well with them.
Yeah. And I don't think you've gone hands-on at all with you, have you, Unky?
No hands-on at all. I think I played something similar, not that like, I think one might have even been the first one, but no, there's too much in my backlog at the moment to even probably think of playing this.
Fair enough. The only other thing I'd point out is I really love the dual sense implementation of the triggers. They've got like a gentle pull and the reverb. They've they've crafted it well, that forced feedback in the triggers. But that's my only final point. Any final points from you, Billy?
No, that's about it for me. As you said, it released today. So, look, if you're a massive twin stick shooter fan, it might be worth looking at. Or if you've got young kids that you want to sort of introduce into this sort of genre without going overly, violent, then this might be something to look at. In terms of is it a must play, I wouldn't have thought so. But, if you're a fan, have a look.
Indeed. And on screen there, you can see the upgrade paths, the co-op companion. You can see I've lost him there. So it's X'd out. Or Bully has, excuse me. It's his footage. And then, it's very basic upgrades. But fantastic game. If you like twin stick shooters, 2 big thumbs up from me. I will certainly be going hands back on with it. Game 3 this evening is Sons of the Forest. Now, guys, this is how I'm going to tell you what this game is. It's Minecraft, but in a modern engine. It is, I don't know, for me, I'd always imagined, what would it be like if Minecraft was done with real graphics? Sons of the Forest is the answer to that question. It starts off a lovely helicopter ride around a deserted, well, it appears to be deserted island, very lost. Can you see where I got my lost inference from? You land in the forest. You've got to, cut down trees, open a survival kit, get an axe, cut down the tree, start building your shelter. There's cannibals on there. There's wild. I think they're more advanced than apes. What, like Cro-Magnon man? What was between apes and men in evolution? Whatever they are, they're on the island. And if you cut down enough of their natural habitat, they come for you. And you'll see in the footage here, I cut down a few trees. The apes turn on me. And then once I turn on the apes, their bigger brothers come and I become the victim, tied up, bound upside down in their camp. I've got to pull a knife out of an unknown orifice, and then I cut myself free. And as I try to run off, I get absolutely decimated by the cannibals and eaten alive. And I survived a total of 1 day and 5 hours. This game looks phenomenal, but I do not have the young man hands and the dexterity required to live any longer, I think, than 24 hours in this game. Guys, any questions? I know it's very broad strokes.
Yeah, no, I've seen a bit on this. I know a lot of people love the original one, which is called The Forest, I believe. And yeah, if you really do like your survival stuff, and this is apparently got the chops. Like a lot of the reviewers out there, a lot of the YouTubers I've been seeing playing it are absolutely in love with it. And I've seen a few now that have gotten as far as to get shotguns and stuff, so they can take out these ape creatures with shotguns. And the power fantasy kind of sort of kicks in there, where all of a sudden you've gone from the hunter to the hunter, and that stuff really appeals to me. I think if you had I'm pretty sure it's co-op as well. I don't think it's just a single player experience. Troy, can you speak to that?
There definitely is co-op available, and you've also got a sort of an AI companion that you can give basic tasks to. Like you can just put on a bit of paper, go collect me wood, and hold it up, and then it'll go. And you can set the parameters like collect me wood within a 20-meter radius of here, and he'll just gather wood and bring it to you so you can build your hut or whatever. But that's very basic rudimentary commands you can give to him. But to your point, live online multiplayer, you can have people come into your world and build up a campment together, which I'm sure would be a heck of a lot of fun. But it's simply beyond my skill set. I do not have the young fingers required and the nimble mind to survive in Sons of the Forest.
No, and just to confirm for viewers out there, this is PC only at this point, isn't it?
That's very true. PC only. No talk of a console release, though I did ask the developers. Oh, I should say the developers supplied the code for this one. Installs on the channel. No confirmation or denial about console release, but I can confirm The Forest, the predecessor, as you said, Unky, was available on PlayStation 4. So fingers crossed it'll come to consoles, and hopefully at that point they've dumbed it down enough that someone like me can give it a real nudge. But fantastic game, looks amazing. If you've got young kids, I say hook them up and see some real-world Minecraft action. Any final points from you, Bully?
Oh, no, it looks sort of interesting, but I always find these sort of survival games become really frustrating because you get to a point where, like you said, you start to get some sort of progress along the way, and you're getting your weapons or you build your hut up or whatever it is, and then you one wrong move and you're dead, and you're basically back to square one again. So I guess my two questions is one, if you die, you're basically back to the beginning, like is a permadeath style thing, or do you sort of
you can do manual saves and reload a save. So
there you go. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, like you talk about the multiplayer, I know some of the games of these sort of type allow, essentially people to invade your world rather than co-op with you, and then, you're off exploring and you come back and some ratbags come in and trashed your base and stolen all your stuff. So
break all
hopefully
your
that doesn't. Hopefully that doesn't happen in that, because I've played games like that before, and it's even more frustrating than a permadeath style thing is that you've spent so long building something up and some a-hole just comes and trashes it on you.
Yeah, well, to your point, man, I can't answer it. I'm not sure. I haven't myself gone hands-on with the multiplayer, so I can't speak to it. All I can say is that it's available, but as to how much damage or co-op they can provide, I'm not sure. But as you said, PC exclusive, I had access to it through Steam. All right, moving along. Oh, now, Unky, you've got to give me all the details on Scars Above. I only came across this trailer because you put it in the docket this evening, but it looks amazing. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so Scars Above, it's a weird one, sort of a mishmash of a whole bunch of different sort of genres. It kind of evokes a bit of Returnal with its sort of tone and storytelling and stuff. And even the voice, I had to look it up today because I was like, I'm sure that's the same as Celine's voice. Not our main character, but there's another character in the game which sounds very much like her, but can't confirm it's not her. No, it wasn't. But just hearing that voice, it just gives you that sort of vibe. But it sort of starts out very dead.
The white uniforms with the splashy yellow, very Returnal. Sorry, mate, keep going.
Yeah, that's right. No, so at the moment, I mean, you start off sort of without that suit or anything like that. Now, I think I've only just got my helmet and a jacket now. So
how far are you? Sorry, and on which console?
I am on Xbox Series X, and I'm probably about 4 hours in, I reckon.
Yeah.
But no, like the story kind of hooks you from the start. Like you're on this spaceship. It's like for a budget title, it actually looks really clean. Like it's a good 60 frames per second. Looks like it's running at 4K, so it's very smooth.
Linear story.
Reasonably linear. So it's a bit of a mystery going on. So you're in the spaceship, you crash land on this thing, you have a bit of a vision thing going on, and then the first thing you come across is you crash. It seems like your spaceship crashed months ago, and all of your other crewmates have aged and sort of left signs that they were there for months, and you've only just landed there now. So
Planet of the Apes style.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. So you're trying to sort of find different debris of your ship and sort of piece together what's going on. But in that, you've got...
Sorry, shout out to... Well, what was it? Uncharted? Nope. The co-op shooter last year did the exact same thing. The very start of last year, went straight into Game Pass.
Outriders
did the exact same thing. You had your people that landed after you aged way up before you. Sorry,
yes,
mate.
no, so similar sort of thing. No, so this one, it's the level design's weird. It's sort of kind of Souls-like in the fact that you've got these sort of open little world areas, but they sort of loop back on each other and have these big pillars up throughout the level, which when you save it are kind of like your bonfire, so it resets the enemies as well.
Shortcuts? Are there shortcuts?
Yeah, so you'll do unlock. So once you sort of unlock certain weapons, so being again like a Metroidvania style game is, just like Metroid Prime, really. You've got at the moment I've only unlocked the 3 styles. So I got the fire weapon, the electric weapon, and the ice weapon. So they'll unlock different doors and stuff, and as you sort of move throughout the levels and bosses, you'll have different mechanics you've got to use to fight those bosses. And right now I've got a cool mechanic where everything's sort of frozen over, and I've got enemies running at me on frozen lakes, but you can use the fire thing to shoot at the ice and then make them fall through the ice. So really cool sort of mechanics there, and the way you got to utilize your fire stuff. You end up with like grenades you can chuck down to sort of put sort of almost petrol over either enemies or a ground space, then use your fire thing on that to create even more damage. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in this sort of budgety title, but it sort of all works, and I've been very impressed. It's probably definitely the epitome of a 7 out of 10 game, because obviously there's other games doing it. There's a lot of other games doing a lot of these things better or sort of to a higher budget or standard. So you just go and play something like a Dead Space remake and you can see the difference straight away. But for this team sort of creating this game sort of out of the blue and to evoke those sort of things, the Dark Souls, Returnal and Metroid, like they're not bad games to be chucking in the equation.
Yeah.
Putting a budget title up against all the big hitters, because it is a smaller title. I think it's a $59.95 game, so it's not full price.
Amazing, and everything you're saying that's selling me on it, man. I'd love to go hands-on with this one, I reckon.
And the good thing about it is it's known to be quite tough as well, but it actually, unlike Returnal and Dark Souls and stuff, the game actually does have difficulty settings. So you can just put on easy, and even easy, it's going to give you a bit of a learning curve and a bit of a hard time sometimes in the game, but you're not going to get as frustrated with it, because I've done the same. I've chucked it on easy. I don't have as much time these days to play games and play them on hard. And it's not an ego thing for me anymore. If I just want to see a story and play a good game, I'm happy to chuck it on easy, just like I've done with Atomic Heart now. which I've also been playing and really loving. I've almost finished Atomic Heart. That's beside the point now. But since the last time we spoke about that game's gone up in my books in terms of its gameplay and everything. But this game sort of came out of nowhere. The thing that sort of brought me towards it was the fact that it looked very Returnal, not gameplay wise as such.
Yeah.
Because it's not really bullet hell, but there is a lot of good third-person action shooting in this. There is a good mystery story. There is good level design, and I've had a lot of fun with it so far.
How's it go? Looking at the trailer, they were talking about how you need, as you sort of said, you've got 3 different environmental weapons: fire, water, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Ice.
But ice, sorry, yep. And you sort of alluded to it, and so did the trailer, that it's not just the enemy you need to shoot with the weapon, but it's the environment the enemy's in at the time. Can you speak to that at all? How much is there environmental puzzle solving at the same time as trying to lay fire on the boss?
I wouldn't say puzzle solving, but they give you a lot of different tools to sort of take out the enemies. So you can use your ice gun to freeze certain enemies, and then use your melee to sort of shatter them as well. As I said, you've got different tools in your bucket to you can chuck this stuff on them. It becomes more flammable. If they're hairier enemies, then obviously fire's going to work better on them. It's hard to explain how many different ways you can do it. I think there's still an acid gun that I need to unlock as well, but I think you've seen on the screen now, or a little bit behind, but there's a boss fight they keep showing there where the boss fights are quite unique. Like, you see this guy here, and he's got these yellow things you got to shoot. Once you've shot those and get to a certain point, he starts putting this stuff on the ground, which is then you've got to, if you don't use your ice gun to sort of create these ice platform you walk on, then the ground's going to kill you. So you've got to be using that while you're fighting him and stuff. So there's a lot of layers to the combat and stuff. And I just think for a budget title, this thing's, probably punching slightly above its weight.
That sounds remarkable. Sorry, and just circling back just to that final point, can you speak at all to the difficulty settings, how that impacts it? Like, if you're fighting the boss and he acids up the ground, if you're on easy, does the acid not actually kill you and it's just an annoyance, or?
No, I think it's more so just damage is reduced for what you get. Essentially, it's like, I think the enemies are all still
like
there.
knocking the multiplier off in Returnal?
Yeah, essentially. So it's just like, I just don't think they hit as hard. So you're not, constantly running out of your health files and stuff like that. It's a little bit easier to manage. When you get in the ice, there's certain parts where you actually have to use your fire gun on these sort of grass stuff to make sure you don't get hypothermia and stuff. It's not egregious. Like, it doesn't sound like it's a survival mechanic, because it's not really. But on easy, like, your hypothermia meter's not going up too fast at all. I imagine on hard, it'll probably go up a lot quicker while you're getting attacked by enemies as well. But I've had no real issues with combat. There's been a couple of sort of bosses that have kind of kicked my teeth a little bit, but on easy, you can kind of, once you work out the patterns, it's just sort of fun once you do that to then go in there and sort of, turn the tables on them once you sort of know what you're doing.
Well, this game looks amazing, mate. I can't wait till you finish it and can give us a final score. But where are you sitting at it score-wise currently?
Yeah, as I said, it's a game that sort of reeks sevens. It's probably around that 7.5 mark at the moment. Because I'm still waiting to see sort of more mechanics go up. And once that fourth gun becomes available, I'll see what happens there. But no, it's definitely sitting around that 7. It'd be remiss to give something like Dead Space a 10 with its budget and stuff, and then give this thing a higher score than a 7.
No, fair enough, man. That sounds great to me. I'm keen. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for it. What about you, Billy? Any thoughts on this one, mate?
Oh, look, it does look interesting. And as you said, it's that budget sort of price range. I just had a look down at 60 of the Aussie dollars. So what's that, about 30-ish US or thereabouts. For that sort of value. But I'd probably wait until Unky finishes it and gives an overall sort of score, I guess. I was just having a look at the Metacritic store, and they're sort of saying an average of about 6.5 to 7 on that one. So probably pretty much where you're at, Unky. It's just a matter of how strongly it finishes, I guess, and whether that's enough to pull me into it, I suppose, because, again, the backlog grows ever bigger, and we're looking at some pretty big releases coming up in the next, sort of month or two. So they're probably going to take up a bit more of the time. And this is probably just going on the backlog list of if they stop releasing games in such a flurry, I might be able to jump back and have a look at something like this, I think.
Definite Game Pass by the sound of that. All right, then. Game 5 this evening is, in fact, Sniper Elite 5 Season 2 DLC. Now, this just came out 2 days ago. I was supplied the code by the developers. Thank you very much. I'm going to say, guys, this game just gets better and better. You're looking at here, they've only released one new DLC map. There's a couple of weapon skins, but this is map 1 that they've just released, and it's phenomenal. The way they now pack the different environment types so tightly together. There's like 6 different encounter types that would almost be their own missions, all in one tight map. It's absolutely phenomenal. The way they've got the rifles going, you can see here, I've obviously got it on easy because I am the world's worst stealth player. But the way they've got it looking, the slow motion bullet times, the way it goes through the skull, boop, there goes the brain, pops out the other side. I absolutely love it. It dials me up to 10. I think this game's phenomenal. And yeah, as I said, like comparing the new DLC to the main game, it's just they just pack more in. It's just a tightly packed, awesome experience. If you enjoyed Sniper Elite 5 at all, the DLC has it in droves. I can't recommend it highly enough. Any questions from you blokes?
No, I just want to back you on the easy, mate. We just said chucking games at easy. There's no harm in that, mate. Especially if it's how you want to enjoy games. We're going to say easy mode. You know, if you need to do it, just do it. There's no shame.
Certainly how I'm rolling through it. Bully, I know you're a fan of the old Sniper Elite 5. Any questions from what you're seeing, mate, or are you just happily?
No, it looks more of the same, but I agree with you, especially on this one. If anybody's actually ever cranked this up to the hardest difficulty where you've got to factor in wind and bullet drop and earth curvature, or depending on how long your shots are and stuff like that, that is, if anyone can play this on the hardest difficulty or the realistic difficulty level and keep themselves hidden and make their way through it and complete it, hats off to them, because there's no way I'd get anywhere near it. But in terms of the DLC, it looks like much more of the same, which is not a bad thing because it plays pretty well. It's a fantastic game, and it's one of the only few times that I'll allow camping.
And look at old mate there. I just shot his teeth out for him. It was a thing of beauty. But there's another thing, like throughout this level, guys know at the start of Breath of the Wild how you can always see the castle off in the distance. In this level, the key central figure is the bridge, but it's the last mission piece you come. So you spend the sort of first 50 minutes on the map circling this bridge and looking across and IDing the blokes on it. And then at the end, you do the storm of the bridge. It's just phenomenal the way they build up to it just in environmental storytelling. It's absolutely masterclass stuff. I can't recommend it highly enough. Speaking of games that can't be recommended highly enough, not from me, but going off the messages you blokes are passing back and forward, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Unky. You've been playing it.
What a great game, provided you can get past that first tutorial boss, Troy.
No, I cannot. Well, I have not.
Well, I hear,
he kicked my teeth in.
I hear Troy's taken Wolong to beat it.
Yeah. No, I've again that first boss is definitely it's got the energy of a boss that in any other game you're supposed to lose to it. It's part of the story.
Yeah.
But no, it's you beat him. Well, at least you think you do, and then it's got a second phase that you've got to beat as well.
I saw that second phase one time for 3 seconds.
Nice. I think I don't know if Bully took my sort of gameplay tips, and that's when he beat him, is to just rush him. And I don't know whether you end up using the halberd or anything like that as the weapon that you used to beat him in the end. But you might
I actually went the complete opposite way. I stayed with the sword and used the distance and just used that. I'm not sure what the actual mechanic on the B button is, whether they call it a deflection or a
parry.
The parry or whatever it is. Use that and just sort of through trial and error of maybe dying 15, 20 times battling him was just, okay, that's how that move starts and how it's going to end, and that's how this one starts. And you just sort of learn the attack patterns over time, deflect, and then you work out the 2 or 3 that you can actually there was one particular one where he throws a projectile at you that if you can deflect that back, it basically stuns him, and then you can go and attack and use that powerful move in there. So I basically just sat there, avoided everything until he threw that thing at me, and then threw it back at him and did it that way. But I got really excited the first time I beat the first phase, and I've done it. Oh, it only took me a half a dozen goes. There you go. Have a look at that. Oh my God, there's another form, and I've got no health.
Yeah, and it gets like I was going to say the boss definitely does prepare you for the game because it does get tougher. I mean, the next couple of bosses I'd say are probably easier than this boss. So once you beat him, you do have a slightly easier time of it in terms of slightly open the levels and being able to upgrade your character and all that stuff. I mean, the fourth boss for me was almost a sticking point. Oh, maybe it was the fifth boss.
It was the
Yeah.
4th hour on the first boss that was the sticking point for me. Keep going.
I reckon I'm maybe 8 hours in. I reckon I just beat the 5th boss. But that 5th boss, I remember I dropped into the arena and he charged towards me and then hit me with another attack. And I'm like, I was just dead. I'm like, how am I going to ever beat this guy? And I almost gave up. Like I'd fought this guy multiple times, and I was like, I'm never going to do this. And then I just sort of kept going and sort of working out his patterns, and I got him down to those times where you get Dark Souls bosses down to literally like it's almost like you can't even see their health meter still on the screen.
I know it all too well.
And then you die. Like for whatever reason, you just forget how to use your controller, and any other moves you can do up to that point just go out the window, and then you just start doing stupid shit. You're like, why did I do that? And I had him twice like that, where I was ready to give up for the night. Like, I'll have one more go, and then I knocked him over, and now I'm in a much harder state in this game with this next level. Like it's got the areas where it's got like some poisony ground thing where it drops you. So I don't know what to call it. It's not really a stamina. The way this game works is you've got sort of this meter that sort of will go right to left, and if you constantly attack, if you'll see it on the screen, it'll go blue to the right. Maybe if it's Troy's screen, it might just see it in red though.
Yeah, it just goes red and left for me.
If you attack enough and it goes blue, then you can hit your sort of Y button on the Xbox or triangle to do your sort of heavy attack, or you can hit sort of right bumper plus I think it's either square or triangle to do sort of these special martial arts attacks that are linked to all separate weapons, and they'll do extra damage as well. So, but if you take damage or you miss a parry or something, it goes back into the red, then you can be stunned. So you sort of risk. It's sort of kind of like Sekiro, where sort of attack is almost the best defense in this game. And once you sort of start to work out those parries and those big red dots and the timing of that to get those parries, you can become really powerful, and it does feel good. That the combat feels really good when you sort of mix in between that and then not only the martial arts stuff but the magic stuff you've got now, and unlocking sort of being able to shoot fire bolts, or making your weapons get electricity on them and stuff. But again, even to be able to use some of those moves, you have to have yourself at a certain level within that level. So the way that mechanic works is you've got flags that are sort of posted around the level, and kind of like checkpoints, sort of like your Demon Souls or whatever, but there's these other hidden ones that aren't checkpoints. So you've got to find those to raise your morale meter throughout the level. And the idea is to get your morale to the max, you've got to find all of these flags within the level. So when you're fighting the boss, you're starting at his level. Otherwise, you're starting below it. And if you die, you go back to whatever level you are. So you can get yourself to rank 20, fight the boss. So it's just fighting enemies. Get yourself to rank 20. You fight the boss, but if you only found like 2 or 3 flags, you might drop back to level 13 and he stays at level 20. So you want to be finding all those flags throughout the level. So it's a good way to help you, actually explore and the different levels and the nooks and crannies and trying to find these flags and going to fight enemies so you can take out them to get to that next flag. So I think it's a really different way to do these levels. It is not like Dark Souls, like they're not big interconnected worlds, like they're sort of separate levels that are sort of semi-interconnected, but you are level-based more like Neo. So you can go back and into those levels and grind out stuff, grind out chests and increase your weapons. And there's a whole bunch of mechanics that open up. So I think after level 5, where you've got a blacksmith that'll actually, you can use other weapons that you've collected to increase the abilities of your other weapons. So a lot of mechanics. Again, the level I'm at the moment is sort of a stopgap. I'm going to have to sort of have a bit more time because it's one of those frustrating ones. I go in, I die, and I'm like, no, I'm going to bounce. And I've just gone back and started playing Dead Space Remake again for that very reason, because I needed something that was going to scare the shit out of me, but not annoy the shit out of me. So,
can I ask you, mate?
Yeah.
Look, here you go. Here's me. After 4 hours of getting my teeth kicked in, I've already uninstalled it, fellas. It is off my Xbox Series X now. I've officially packed up my bat and ball and gone home with Wolong. Can I ask, is this the only game, like obviously in all the Soulsborns, the bosses can reach beyond your standard dash, but I feel like the minions in the level in all the other Soulsborne games, anytime you dash backwards, you can always get out of reach. But this game feels like you've got a 50-50 chance of either getting out of reach or just copping the end of it. Am I wrong? Am I doing it wrong? Am I parrying wrong?
Well, the parrying's the key. That's
yeah.
The parrying's the key. That's ultimately what the main mechanic of it is. So if you can master that and work that out, although I actually found it easier at times, especially with that first boss, is that to parry him I found a lot easier than the minions in the level, because you quite often will get to you'll be 3 or 4 at the same time, and you might get attacked from one side. You don't really see it coming because you don't see the red attack that's about to occur, or even when you do, I find just the timing of them I found a little bit off, but the bosses seem to be a bit easier work out when and where to parry, I guess. So, and the only other thing I'll say, just with that leveling system as well, so it actually affects the damage that end boss will do to you, and how much damage you can do to the boss with how many of those flags you got and how quickly you raise or how close you get to his level as well. So it actually makes a massive impact in terms of your ability to defeat the boss as well. So it's, as you said, Unky, it's well worth jumping through the level. Not only do you grind yourself up and get your stats up, but you also, in effect, are lowering the difficulty of the boss at the end of each level as well.
Well, it didn't matter how much I ground. I could not beat that boss, guys. As I said, 4 hours and I'm officially done with it. But please do come back and give me scores. Where are you blokes sitting? Obviously, for me, it's about a 2. But where are you blokes sitting numbers-wise with this one at the minute?
I'd be about sort of high 7s, 8 at the moment. I just don't think it's got quite the polish of like a FromSoft game, or even maybe even the Neo 2 games. It's trying to do a lot more action stuff. It feels more Ninja Gaiden than Dark Souls, which obviously it's Team Ninja, so, and they did Neo, so it's sort of, you could almost call it, I don't want to say this because Troy's already deleted because he failed miserably, but it's sort of like an easier Soulsborne game.
I don't have it handy, but I did platinum Elden Ring.
I knew you were going to go to my right, this is the guy that platinum Elden Ring and makes you wonder whether.
But that's my point. Like, a good game in Elden Ring, a 10, has that difficulty curve well metered, so I can grind against it for 3 hours, but then succeed, and that's the shot in the arm for the next 3 hours. But 4 hours with no dice on that first boss, nah, I've got no more time for Wolong.
Fair enough.
Bully, your score, mate, where are you sitting?
I'd probably be about the same, and I agree. I actually really enjoyed the more fast-paced action style, and it's funny you mentioned Ninja Gaiden because that was the exact same thing I was thinking of when I was playing it. It's got that very similar. You've got to be really quick. You've got to be moving around the screen to avoid things. Obviously, this adds in the parry mechanic as well, and all that sort of stuff. But 100%, it reminds me of the Ninja Gaiden games, and I really enjoyed it for that. The only as I said, it doesn't quite have the polish of the Soulsborne games. And the only other thing I found sort of frustrating, especially once you get into the third and fourth level, is the way that they have the checkpoint markers or the banners set up there. It seems to be a bit unevenly set out. So there were some of the areas you'd trigger one of the banners and then you might fight half a dozen enemies and then you're at the next banner. And then between that banner and the next one is 20 minutes of gameplay and 50 enemies that you've got to battle your way through to get to the next one. And quite often you find yourself limping with no health left and trying to skirt around the enemies just to trigger that banner. So that's just probably makes it probably in some sections a little bit harder than what it really needs to be. But I don't know how many you've sort of given it your score, Troy. I don't know how many tissue boxes that is that you're peppering out for your score. I don't know.
No tissue boxes, but the bottom panels of my car are looking pretty dinted.
Hey, Bully, can I just ask quickly, how many health files do you have now?
4, I think, or 5.
4, yeah, I reckon up to 5 now. I reckon I just found my 5th in the 4th level.
Yeah, so it must be 4.
Definitely helps.
I'm up to this almost the end of level 4, I think, is where I'm up to. So if you've just got your 5th, that'll load me with 4.
Good luck.
Well, I did beat the pig first go. That was triumphant.
Oh, that pig was nothing. Wait till you get the next magic guy that teleports all across the world every time you're up in his face, and then the next enemy that you see that takes up nearly the whole bloody screen. It's ridiculous.
Well, is that the teleporting one in the cave you're talking about?
Yeah.
Spoil away, guys. Don't hold back. I've got no interest. Go, talk, details.
Oh, that's all right.
No, I won't spoil it all, but the little trick I had for that one is and this is one of the differences with some of the other Soulsborne games, you can actually meet characters and then recruit them into the world to fight with you. So this particular battle, you go in with 2, or I went in with two other characters. And this magic bloke was giving me the irrits because exactly that. Anytime you get near him, he just teleports away. So all I did was just cruise back to the back side of the cave and let these 2 other punters whittle him down, and then just went in with the occasional attack when he was stunned. And I didn't find that one too hard, to be honest. But obviously, I've got some harder things coming.
Absolutely, you do.
Excellent work, fellas. We've just got some final comments in from the audience. That's right. So it's over to Ace now for his comments on the Wolong Dynasty. No, what is it? Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Here we go.
Ace back with you. Thanks for having me again, Troy, Suki, and the bullied one. And this week's award goes out to none other than our special host, the Wolong Warrior, the big sook who couldn't get past the first boss in Wolong's adventures. And to you, Troy, you get the Golden Sook Award. Now go and work on your skills. Oh.
That's it, fellas. I'm officially the Golden Sook this week for uninstalling Wolong off my system, but I'll take it. Thank you, Ace. A pleasure as always, my friend. Game 7 this week is Rough Justice 84. Shout out to the developers for making the code available. Once again, this one's on Steam. This is our first ever Steam Let's Install for the channel. We've got 2 of them up. The other one was Sons of the Forest. I should have mentioned that one earlier. But this is Rough Justice 84. It's set in a fictionalized Miami, 1984, and it's essentially the police force has disappeared, and it's now all up to like what do you call them? Private detective agencies. That's what I'm looking for. And you're running one of those, and you're hiring people and sending them out on missions. But there are a lot of mechanics, and I could not wrap my puny little console brain around this in-depth, I would say, high-level PC game. Bully, I know you went hands-on, mate. Is there a better way to articulate the high level of interconnected systems that are on display in Rough Justice 84?
No, there's a lot. It's probably best described as a point-and-click adventure with some puzzle-type elements, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. And I agree with you. Within the first couple of minutes, it hits you over the head with so many different mechanics and you can sort of follow the story in and of itself, but then it starts into the gameplay. And within a couple of minutes, I was almost lost as to what I was doing and where I was going. It does have a bit of a tutorial, but the tutorial is probably not as straightforward as you like, whereas most games sort of will drip feed you little bits of, this is how you do that and this is how you do this. It sort of just throws everything at you at the one time and then just leaves you to your own devices, and you're sort of sitting there going, what the hell do I do now? And you've got an overview map of the world and how do I get from here to there and what am I doing? And you make your way to one area and then you sort of there's a little puzzle element to it, and you can't. I was the same. I just sort of looked at it. I think I spent 10 or 15 minutes with it and just went, maybe it's not the right time. I had, kids running around and that sort of stuff. If you sat down and just had the time to read everything that was going on and work your way through it, you might be able to get your head around it a bit. But I just, when you talk about learning curve and accessibility, I guess, into a game, this really just didn't have that at all, in my opinion. I think it's still in a beta phase, so whether they end up on their actual release,
big release is 1 week away, the 13th.
Well, there you go. They might not have enough time to do it. I was sort of hoping that by the time they release.
Sorry, I was just going to say today, mate, they released the proposed release candidate came out today with a lot of bug fixes in there, a lot of overhauls.
Well, and it might be worth going back and having a look now that they've, sort of rejigged that. There was obviously in a beta phase, so they would have got a lot of feedback in relation to it. And if they've got some of that feedback that it was just too much too early and left people sort of lost after that 15 or 20 minutes, because the reality is once you're there, if you can't get past that initial phase, you're never going to get through any more of the game. And the prime example is you playing Wolong. You can't get past the first boss. You just uninstall it and move on. So,
it's been a week of me getting my teeth kicked in, and this game sort of lined me up and kicked me again. The way I'd summarize it from your comments, mate, does it distill it better if we say this game is 100% for the PC master race, and I'll be the first to put my hand up and say I am not an elite member of that class of people?
Oh, look, I a long time ago moved away from PC gaming, but this is 100% right up that. It's almost a mixture of, I've mentioned the point and click and the puzzle stuff, but you throw in a bit of CRPG elements as well, which are very heavy stat based, and you've really got to be looking at minute details of what's going on, and unless you've got the time and energy and effort to throw into something like that, it's probably not one that you want to jump into if you're looking for a quick breezy experience. Now, don't get me wrong, the setup and the story and the environment and all that sort of stuff is appealing from looking at it initially, but it's just that gameplay that sort of lets it out, I think.
I should say as well, it calls to me. I don't know if you played it, Bully. I do need your thoughts on it. If you have, is Disco Elysium. It's got that similar art style in the cutscene to Disco Elysium, and then it pulls in. There's a lot of vibes for me of GTA Vice City in the narrative. It looks like Disco Elysium. The narrative reminded me of GTA Vice City. It's cool, it's interesting, exciting, but it's just so mechanic heavy that my little console brain just can't pull it off. I'd love to see the console iteration of Rough Justice 84 and go hands deep in the, baby's first version of it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I suppose, is like Disco Elysium does have some of those elements, but it's not so overwhelming that you can't sort of work your way through it and get into it. If you're prepared to put in, an hour or so to get through the basics of it. Once you get through to that point, you can sort of really start enjoying the game. I just don't know how you'd get to that point with this unless, as I said, you're prepared to sit down and literally reread, and probably end up making notes about what you're doing and that sort of stuff. And for me, being majority console gamer, or 99% of my gaming is on console, that's just not how I like to play, sitting down, taking notes and that sort of stuff. I just like the controller in my hand and the action and jumping into it. And I think you guys mentioned before just about difficulty and stuff. Like, I just don't have the time to invest into what needs to be invested into a game like this. And it's not the difficulty as such. It's just that the heavy text narrative stuff that you got to get into and work your way through. So if that sort of thing, old school CRPG, is up your alley, well, good luck to you. It's probably worth a look at. If it's not, and you're a majority console gamer like we are, it's probably something you don't want to get into unless they have really gone to town on fixing some of those things with that new release or up until release date next week.
Indeed. Great points. Unky, I don't think you've gone hands-on, mate, but any questions, or should we move along to the news segment?
No, we can move along, mate. I think you guys have done this one pretty well.
All right, then, let's kick in some newsroom doors, shall we? You have the right to remain newsroom. Unky Dunky, first up this week, 14 minutes of Dead Island 2 gameplay?
There was. I don't know, have you guys just put your hands up? Have you actually gone and watched this gameplay footage yet?
Negatory.
Oh, boys, come on. One job. No, this
it's my job to react to the news.
So there's 14 minutes of gameplay. This has got me so hyped for this game. I think we're all a bit like, we'll wait and see what it's like. Like, there's a whole bunch of other better games coming out around this time. But this has got me fully hyped. Like, the way LA looks in this game is so colourful and vibrant. The gory melee combat in this game looks incredible. The gunplay looks ridiculously fun. I cannot wait for this game after watching this gameplay footage. It's like
Is it next month?
Yeah, it's 21st of April, this one. So it's not that far away. And I think it got brought forward a week. I think it was a news article not that long ago. I think it was brought forward a week for its release date after being delayed so many times. But no, do yourself a favour once we finish the show tonight. Watch this 40 minutes of gameplay. I could not be more psyched for this game now. It just looks like it's just so much fun. And you know what? Sometimes all you just need is a fun game and shooting zombies and slashing their limbs and watching their flesh carve away their faces and their legs when you're hitting it with an axe or something. That's what I need this time of year.
I hear you, man. I hear. It sounds good, but I've just been sucked in one too many times by gameplay trailers released by the developers 6 weeks before launch. I feel like it's a common misstep, like misleading step.
That's the thing. Like, a lot of these things are like that, but the way they set this gameplay out, it's kind of got raw footage of just someone playing the game, and then they'll sort of pause at certain moments, then show you. They'll say, "I'll use this," and they'll pause it, and then go and show more extreme versions of that weapon. And they show the skill trees and how they work. You're never locked into one skill tree. If you want to change your abilities, you can change your abilities. And they show it sort of being a heavy melee attack, and then sort of using more guns and stuff. And I just think the way this game showed off in this format, I just think did wonders for it, because I'd seen footage of the game before and I was like, like we all were, like, oh, it's cool, we'll play it. But when I watched this 14 minutes, I was like, this is shot up my list of games that I want to play this year.
Does it do anything new or above, like your Dying Light 2 recent releases, your Last of Us Part 1 PS5, upres? Does it feel like there's any groundbreaking zombiness, or is it
I
much of
think
much
no,
less?
it actually does. I think the zombie degradation stuff they're doing with the weapons and stuff, and the way you hit them, different bits of flesh will come away from the enemy, and like their eyeballs will rip out and stuff. They've got this really cool feature. Like it's hard to explain. You have to watch the trailer and just see it in action. Like they'll like punch through a zombie's head and rip out its skull and stuff like that, and just it just looks real visceral and like not just like any old zombie game where everything's different. All the zombies look different. They're all dressed different. It's not doesn't feel like you're doing killing the exact same zombie over and over again. Some will chase you. Some will just sort of meander behind you. Like, do yourself a favor. Just watch this 14 minutes. I think you'll be turned around as well.
Nice, sold. No points from me, and I don't think Bully's there. So we'll move on to story 2. What's happening in Fortnite land, Unky?
Story 2. So it looks like Fortnite was kind of new season coming or started now. I'm not sure if it's started just yet. It's not far away. If it's not,
End of the month. The end of this month concludes this battle pass, so this will be the 1st of April.
There you go. So there's rumours going around it's going to get a first-person mode, which I could easily see happening given the fact that now we've got guns that aim down sights and stuff like that. I could easily see we've got guns aim down sights. We've got zero build mode. What else is next? Of course, Fortnite's going to do a first-person mode. Why wouldn't they? It's
Call of Duty mode. Are they calling it?
Yeah. Oh well, probably. But Fortnite, if other games do it, they're going to try and do it. And they're going to try and do it better because let's face it, they're probably the multiplayer shooter experience these days, one of the only shooter experiences that's not getting cancelled, being a live service game. So I think it's Fortnite's here to stay, and the more things they can do to keep more players or get that sort of Call of Duty audience into their game, first person mode is just a lock, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And I'll just quickly shout out, I know this isn't anything to do with the news story as such, but the Fortnite creative mode now, my boys play a lot of Roblox, and they're getting into the Fortnite creative mode in a very similar way to the way they've done Roblox. So just further to your point, mate, they are totally capitalizing on that younger gamer audience that are all about creating their own game modes and then showing them off. I see no end in sight for the Fortnite. Like, it's just seeding that whole next generation of gamers. So hats off to them. I love everything they're doing. Bully, any thoughts on Fortnite at this stage? How's your Garrote quest going? Did your young bloke get it for you?
No, apparently he's got some other thing that he needs to get done by this weekend. So that's been put on the back burner. So I'll have to get him onto that. But look, you guys play a lot more Fortnite than I do. I sort of dabble in it very occasionally. And that's about it. So I might check out the first person mode and see how that goes. But probably nothing more than a passing interest from me.
Fair enough. All right, then. Story 3, TNMT, Unky. What's going on?
Ooh. God, I was so pumped. I had no idea this trailer was hitting. That I saw some articles saying, trailer dropping tomorrow. And then I totally forgot the trailer was on because I was at work and really busy. And then I just opened YouTube and I'm like, there it is. And I was not disappointed. I didn't realize the studio sort of making it in terms of the animation was the same guys that gave us Into the Spider-Verse and Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is two of my favorite.
Can't you? Yeah.
You really can, and it's one of the best animation styles I think going around at the moment. I think if I'm going to watch something animated, I want to see it in that style, and just to see Ninja Turtles like this, even they're sort of harkening more on the teenage part of the Turtles, which I think is a really good thing. I think we've seen most iterations of the Turtles, they're definitely not behaving like teenagers. And in this, it definitely evokes the teenage part. They're all played by 17-year-old kids now, so they've got that sort of more teenager sort of vibe to them. And
the watermelon above the head moment took me back to my childhood with my brother causing chaos with me and a watermelon. Like, they've totally nailed the teenage feel of it.
They have, and just the squeal of, it gets me every time. The squeal of Donnie when the sigh goes into his leg just gets me every time. And the fact that, Mikey's wearing braces, just small little details like that in the trailer, I cannot wait. My little fella, I showed him the trailer, and he has watched this trailer, I reckon, 30 times. Framed it, trying to get pictures of Bebop and Rocksteady. He's at one moment saw when they're coming down the skateboards, they flashed to only for a split second of them being baby turtles doing something similar, and he managed to pause for him on that and take a screenshot. And he's so into it, and I can't wait. And the fact that he's as excited about Ninja Turtles as I am, and the fact that this comes out August, brought to us by Seth Rogen. They announced all the different voices. There's so many different talented voice actors coming to this thing, playing all the different mutants. I cannot wait to see this movie.
I am pumped. I'm lit up. I can't wait. What about you, Bully?
Yeah, I can't wait as well. But it was funny because I first saw some images of it before I saw that there was a trailer, and I thought it was I thought it was a joke that someone had put something up and said, "Oh, there's a new Turtles style coming," and threw that up, and I thought, "Oh yeah, right, someone's taking the mick." But turns out it's actually legitimate. So there we go. The only thing is there a release date on it? I thought it was coming up fairly shortly. Is that am I
It's
correct in that?
August.
Yeah, well, there you go. So not too long to wait.
I want to say August 21, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm just scrolling through the doc now. August 4, there you go.
August 4, excellent. I look forward to it. As you said, man, such high quality pedigree from this studio. I don't think there's any chance this film's anything less than an 8, but I'm hopeful for a 9 or a 10. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I had the epiphany tonight, Troy, to the dismay of my wife, that guess what a new Turtles movie means, Troy?
What's that?
It means more turtle toys.
Hey!
Hey!
Extend the back shelf, mate. We want to see it all the way across the shot.
Oh, don't worry. When you never buy one turtle, you're going to buy all 4. It's unfortunate.
Excellent. Now, the next story, this one's more from me, and it's more of a PSA, if you don't mind, Unky. I'll just jump in and take the reins. I just want to point out to everyone that March 16th, I believe it is. No, March 15th. Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, the highly excellent, highly underrated Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is actually leaving Xbox Game Pass March 15th. So if you're yet to play it, if you haven't gone hands-on, you've got just under a week now to play it, and it's a phenomenal game. The comedy writing in it's excellent. I think everyone should play this game who considers themselves a gamer, just because it's got such a unique take on how to do a single-player game, but with team-based mechanics. The comedy writing stellar. The linear story is beautiful. Unky, what was it, 12 hours, I want to say, start to finish?
Yeah, I reckon it might have been a bit longer than that. But I just totally forgotten about how much fun and good that game was. The story was great.
Yes, it's such a good game. So this is just a PSA. If you're yet to go hands-on with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and you've got an Xbox and Game Pass, do yourself a favor, put it to the top of your list for this week because it's a must-play. Bully, any thoughts from you on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy?
No, I can see where you guys are coming from. It just didn't really hit with me. The gameplay itself, I don't think. But I think I mentioned it when we spoke about it a while ago, is that I was following a guide trying to get the platinum for it. And it was a fairly specific list of things you had to do and a manner in which you had to do it to not miss particular parts and all the rest of it. And I think that was the first time in a long time I'd actually sat and followed a guide while I was playing a game. And I think that was probably the reason why it sucked the fun out of it a little bit for me. Yeah. So I'm open to going back to it at some point and just playing it from the start without the guide and just playing it for what it is and hopefully get a bit more enjoyment out of it.
It's a great prompt you've given me, mate. And Unky, this ties back into what you were saying earlier. Because there is such limited time before this leaves Game Pass, if you've got an Xbox, I say pick this one up on Game Pass, drop it down to the easiest. I think it was a story narrative difficulty. Drop it down to easy. Don't look at a guide. Don't worry about the cheapos. Just play through that single player experience. It is something else. And to Bully's point, if you can just immerse yourself in the story and not worry about the ultra edge case collectathon, I think it's such a worthwhile experience. And dropping it down to story mode, you might be able to bowl it over in 10 hours, I reckon. Anyway, moving on now. Story 5, over to you, Unky. Starfield news?
Starfield news. This came through today, I think. So it has been delayed, as we sort of maybe thought it might happen, unless you're Troy. You thought it was shadow dropping or stealth dropping like yesterday.
No, we'll see. They've said Starfield release delayed until September. It was coming out in 2 weeks, and they've just now delayed it till September.
Yeah, that's right. So we're getting September 6th now. So I think we're getting a deep dive on June 11th. So I've kind of incorporated 2 stories here because there was another separate story about Microsoft having a showcase on June 11th, but the Bethesda/Starfield conference or whatever showcase they're going to have is playing straight after the Xbox showcase on June 11th. So don't have to wait too long. It's going to be around that E3 time. We're getting all these big guys, Sony and Xbox, showing us what they got. But I can't wait to see this. I think they've delayed it probably for a good reason. Bethesda can only go up with delaying games because, let's face it, their games don't really release usually in the best state. So any delay on this is hopefully going to give us a better playing experience for everyone out there. I still think it's going to, Bethesda's going to Bethesda. I think this thing's still going to come out with issues when it comes to, putting on next-gen consoles and all that, and PC. I think a lot of the games recently that we've seen come out this year, PC versions of these games are just coming out well undercooked, and that's where a lot of, negative feedback's coming from. So it'll be interesting to see if Starfield can buck the trend or if it's going to follow it. So, no, I'm looking forward to it. The fact that we've got a date, I don't think we've got too much else announced for September, just off the top of my head. Bully, you might be able to scroll to a 2023 release list in September and see what else we got. But I think, it doesn't matter when this thing releases. It's going to be reasonably safe, I would say.
Is the 6 extra month of development time just for the art department to get to the UI and change it from the base white look?
Well, possibly. I reckon once this game comes out, I think you're going to find it's going to have filters for all that stuff. Because I know in Fallout you could always change the color of your Pip-Boy and stuff like that as well. So I don't think that's something they wouldn't leave out of this game of somehow.
Very good. No worries. Bully, have you got a date there, or should we march along while you continue hunting and gathering?
Just having a look to see what else other games are coming out in September that might be around it. So I'll just bring that up now. But just in terms of Starfield itself, I think, to be honest, they're sort of stuck in between two frames for mine. Is that this game needs to come out this year. It absolutely has to for Microsoft's sake. They can't delay it into next year. But to Unky's point as well is we all know what Bethesda's like in the state of their game. So I think this is probably Microsoft saying to them, this is coming out this year. We will give you the extra couple of months, but I'd almost say this is the hard deadline now. There's no way that it can get pushed out of September or really the only exclusive game that of any note that Microsoft is going to come out with this year, apart from this one, is Redfall. So,
what about Forza? Isn't there a Forza on the slate?
Potentially, but I mean, in terms of some, there might have been the new Forza, like the standard one, not the Horizon, but potentially. But in terms of a mass market appeal, I think they really need to. They really need to get this out this year. So it might be just Microsoft saying, look, you've got an extra couple of months to iron out these bugs, but there is in no way, shape or form can this be pushed past September. We have to get it out. Otherwise we've really only got Redfall and maybe Forza of any note, which really isn't enough for them. They're drowning as it is at the moment in terms of exclusives and going up against PlayStation and what they're offering. And, you've only got to look at the release schedule for what we've got for PlayStation exclusives that are coming out, that it's going to bury Microsoft in the end. And really, their only hope is to get that Activision deal through, which isn't going to happen at any time soon. And even when it does, they've still got to get back to work at working at when and how they're going to release games. But just in terms of the release schedule, just having a look. So September, Starfield's the only one that's actually been given a hard release date. And the only other things I can see around that are maybe another one that's, which I think is coming to Game Pass as well, is Lies of P, the Pinocchio-style game. But that's in August. Apart from that, you're coming back into July and June and some of the releases there. So
can you
at this stage, I've got a bit of... Yeah?
Jump forward 2 months, November 11th, 11/11. Anything coming out that date?
The only hard release that they've got on this one at the moment is The Day Before, which is a PC game. Never heard of it. So, but having said that, if you look at the list of to be confirmed games, it's Q4 is going to start. September's late Q3 into Q4. You're going to start to get a lot of other stuff coming out there. Like you're looking at the new Spider-Man 2 that's coming out on a PS5.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at Alan Wake 2, which is still slated for a release date later this year. You're looking at Assassin's Creed, Mirage are just some of the bigger ones that I can look at there that look like they're coming towards the back end of this year. So at this stage, it looks fairly open, but we all know what happens towards the back end of the year. It gets fairly heavy in terms of game releases. So again, wait and see to see whether it actually hits the mark or whether it's going to get drowned out with some other stuff that's going to be coming.
Fair points. All right, then. Story, what's this? 6 for the evening, Unky. Resident Evil 4. Is Tagaro in the chat, Billy?
No, he timed this very well. Tagaro has just quite generously dropped us a $20 donation in the chat there, Tagaro. So
thank you, Tagaro.
So, thank you very much. So he timed it well because this story is actually for Tagaro. We've had conversations about this at work. Don't worry, Capcom is fixing the weird rain in Resident Evil 4 Remake. As I told you, I said, don't worry. I said the uproar from all the fans seeing those trailers was always going to hit the ears of the developers, and it looks like that's the case. So it looks like day one patch will be released to diminish that effect of the rain. So Tagaro, you can keep that pre-order that I know you've just put down on that game. And Tagaro, don't worry, your PS4 controller is coming tomorrow. I won't forget.
And is he going physical release or digital?
Pretty sure he's going physical, as far as I know. He seems like a physical kind of man, the old Tagaro. So I dare say he's going to have that hard copy in his mitts.
And I take it you're going physical as well, Billy?
Oh, 100%. You've always got to have the good hard thing in your hand coming home from the shops.
All right, well, you can expect a digital install from me day and date when it does drop. And Unky, I suspect you'll be going the digital purchase as well.
Oh, I've been bucking the trend this year, and I've been getting quite a few hard copies, which is really annoying because the only reason I haven't been playing Dead Space recently is because I knew I had to get up and actually put it in the console and take Hogwarts out. So I said to myself, sit on the couch, and I'm like, Steve, just get up and put the disc in the console. So I did that, and now I'm playing Dead Space again. I'm like, okay, good. So I reckon with something like Resi, I might actually pick up the hard copy. But again, I'd like to be able to just sit on my sofa and just hit a button and start playing at the same time. So, and there was another story. It's not on here, but it is Resident Evil related. I think in American GameStop, they have just cancelled everyone's physical copies of the collector's editions. So they didn't say anything about digital. Not sure if anyone in Australia is going to suffer the same fate at EB Games. Haven't heard anything, but a bit disappointing for all those people that pre-ordered those copies of the games, and hopefully they'll get it.
Interesting that story comes out. What was it? I feel it was only 2, maybe 3 weeks ago where GameSpot in America had the big corporate layoffs. Is there a chance they laid off the pre-ordering department and this one just fell through the cracks, do you reckon?
Or they've laid off their accounts department, forgot to pay the bills.
Yeah. Oh, no, we can't afford to paint all the statues we've got.
All right, guys. Well, I'm looking forward to Resident Evil 4. Oh, and I should mention I was doing 5 a.m.'s Wake Up Screaming with Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I was going to go to Resident Evil 3, but this morning I got up and that whole thing just went pear-shaped. So I think that's the end of the Wake Up Screaming series. I think 3 episodes and it was done. All right, whatever story this is, 6, I want to say 7 maybe this evening. Once again, this is a PSA from me, just a follow-on from last week. I mentioned Pinball Effects had come out and it was free. And an awesome game on the PlayStation. It was phenomenal. But I noted last week that the input delay on the Xbox was noticeable. Like it hit the paddles and you were missing easy shots just because of that delay. But this story is just to say that the update version 1.0.2.708 has totally fixed the controller input problem. So now there's no better time to get the free game of Pinball Effects on the Xbox Series X. Play that free table. Make sure it's the latest patch, although I don't think you can not have the latest patch with the smart delivery system. And you will have no delay on the input. So it's a phenomenal game. You should check it out. It's free and now bug-free on the Xbox Series X, also available on PlayStation, but they never had the issue there to begin with. All right, that brings us to Game Informer this week, Unky. Give us a list read, please, sir.
I will. Just a PSA just from me to Bully. The Aussies 4 for 198, so still no collapse just yet.
Oh, I have been reading, just checking the scores there.
Nice. Okay, so on for the new releases this week from Game Informer, we have Dead Cells Return to Castlevania. That was March 6, all consoles and PC. We have Outlanders on PC, March 7. We have Clash Artifacts of Chaos, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One and PC, March 9. We have Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, the PlayStations, Xboxes and PC and the Switch. We have Irritable Bowel, that's just IB for Switch on March 9. We have No by Heart Switch, March 9. Monster Energy Supercross 6, PS5, Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One's PC, March 9. Oni Road to be the Mightiest Oni, PS5, PS4, Switch PC, March 9. Session Skate Sim, another one for the Switch, March 9, 2023. Before Your Eyes is on PSVR 2. I think that's the one it's got a blinking mechanic, I think, Bully, which it utilizes the eye tracking on the PSVR 2. I think that's what that one is. And then we've got DC's Justice League Cosmic Chaos, which is a chibi kind of DC, I think, actiony kind of shooty thing. So PS5, Xbox Series XS, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. That is March 10, which is tomorrow.
Nice work, Unky. Thank you. The only shout out I want to give is Dead Cells Castlevania. I am so keen to go hands on. I didn't even realize it had come out this week. I didn't realize it was behind me. I'm going to have to go hunting once we're off air this evening and pick myself up a copy. Lads, any high waters? Any of these titles jump out at you?
Not for me. Probably the only one that probably does jump out is Dead Cells as well. But again, I looked at it and I saw the price. I was like, oh, it's a little bit
what is
steep.
the price?
Well, it's a good question. It's not overly expensive. I think it was like $25, I think, for both of them, I think.
Oh, okay. Yep.
There was like a pack that had a whole bunch of DLC stuff in it as well. But I was like, I've got too much other stuff to play. If I install it now, I know for a fact I don't have time to play it. So there was just no point.
I think just for a point of reference, over the Christmas New Year period, you could buy the base game and the 3 DLCs in a bundle discounted to $45. That was the previous best price I'd seen on that.
Yeah, Bully, I think it was like 35 or something.
Yeah, nice. Bully, any grabbing your eyes there, mate, or should we move on?
Oh, Fatal Frame. I don't know if you guys ever played the originals
Never.
that come out in the early 2000s, but that's a bit of a different take on the survival horror. You basically, the way you defeat enemies is with a camera. So a bit of a different way of doing it. And I'll tell you what, as much as you might laugh at it, the DC's Justice League, I don't mind jumping into the odd little platforming game and taking a break from your hard as nails, Wolong style games and just having a bit of mindless fun. So that might be something as well. And I just checked the price. That looks like a sort of a $50-ish to $60 Aussie. So about a 30 US price tag on that one. The only issue with the Fatal Frame, and I'm the physical collector, it looks like it's Play Asia only, and they're sitting at about $110
Holy
Australian
moly.
for that one. So I'm not sure I'll be getting my hands on that anytime soon.
I suspect you'll be deadlocked in a standoff with those guys. Speaking of the standoff, Unky Dunky, this week's standoff. Who will fight? Who will fight?
I think your segue was better than mine. I was going to go speaking of Wolong earlier, but that one worked. We are looking at with Wolong, as we've spoken about tonight, having one of the toughest first bosses to ever read in a tutorial, which may or may not induce rage quitting and uninstalling.
I was going to say, the new difficulty level, the boss is so hard, he's uninstallable.
I like it. But this week we are asking, what is the best or most fun, slightly easier tutorial boss we have fought? Number 1, Standoff Troy.
Oh, that's me, and one more button press. There we go. It's on screen, mate.
Is a Wilson Fisk from Spider-Man 2018. So this was a great fight. Like, you'd already sort of done all the swinging stuff and learned how to play as Spidey, and then they throw you into this fight. And what a fun fight this was. Like, again, it's nothing too hard, but it just sort of...
It was the block and parry tutorial, wasn't it?
It had a bit of that, yeah. So it had the web where you had to web some of the guns up and swing them around as well and throw them. So I had that mechanic as well. So
yes.
it sort of taught you about how to use the environment to sort of in combat as well. So I did all that stuff in this, and it was just the to and fro between these two characters and stuff. You could tell they got a bit of a history straight away, even though you're only seeing them on the screen for the first time. And it was just such a fun fight. It's a boss fight, yes, but by no means is it, punishing and going to make you quit the game, because let's face it, you're not going to want to quit a game like Spidey A.
No, such a high quality game. I absolutely loved it. I'm sure this is the one that, taught me the dodge mechanic, and beautifully done. It was absolutely phenomenal. I love this fight, and shout out to the dual sense implementation for this fight as well. That was because the game originally came out on last gen, but then when the re-release, the dual sense on this particular fight with those turrets was a thing of beauty. Bully, any thoughts?
I thought it was a good introduction to the game, to be honest. And as you mentioned, the mechanics that you sort of got introduced to, that you had to use pretty much each of them to get through the fight. I don't recall it being massively difficult, though. To be honest,
No,
maybe
it
I'm
was great.
misremembering it.
No,
But
it wasn't.
that's what we're saying.
We're not saying it's that difficult. That's the point.
We're saying the
Oh,
easy bosses.
Oh, the easy tutorial bosses. My bad. I've read it the wrong way. Yes, well then, that makes a lot more sense for me than I'm reading it. I'm thinking, what are you clowns talking about? Oh, this was pretty easy. I thought. I don't know what you guys are smoking, but
the game remained installed.
Oh God, I'd like to know what Bully thinks of some of the upcoming standoffs. If he thought that was still the parameters for it, because there's a pretty easy ones coming up.
Hold on, blokes. We need to take a quick active reload unless there's a final point on Standoff 1. It'll be a 30-second active reload, then we'll be back for Standoff Entry 2. Unless you fellas, any final points?
No.
All right, back in 1 second. Then, fellas, hello everybody, welcome back. This is Standoff Entry 2 for the easiest, best intro bosses because Wolong Dynasty kicked my teeth in and got kicked off my console. Unky, who's number 2?
A game that didn't get kicked off your console was Horizon Forbidden West. You and Bully both played.
It almost whinged itself off my console, but didn't get kicked off.
It almost did, but now Slithering Fang was another one. This boss was cool. This is where my sort of
Slithering Fang, wasn't he in Hogwarts?
Yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, Slytherin. No, this guy was a cool boss fight. Again, not that hard, but like if you still had to try very hard to beat it. But this for me is what sort of cemented Horizon Forbidden West as being a bigger bombastic version of the first game. You fight this guy, and just watching this snake move on screen and attacking this thing was just like it was just amazing to see on screen, just with the colors, the way this thing moved, the way you had to sort of utilize your tactics that you learnt up to this point. Like your fingers were going crazy. Troy, I'm pretty sure your man hands during this fight were struggling hard, more so than the boss.
Confirm.
So Bully can probably speak to more. He's the Platinum Horizon Forbidden West guy. How'd you find this boss, Bully?
Actually, quite challenging, as you said. It throws all the different sort of elements at you as you're playing, and you got to work through, the counterpoints to them, I suppose, with the electricity and the poison and all that sort of stuff. But just very indicative of the game in and of itself is that these absolutely massive, I can't even remember what you call them, but robots or dinosaurs or however you want to characterize them.
Robot dinosaurs.
Or robot dinosaurs, creatures, whatever. Like this just sets it up, in my opinion, for what you get out of the rest of the game. These massive things that just take up the screen. They are really well designed and put together, and this just sets you up, as I said, for the rest of the game and to what to expect with some of the other creatures that you're going to end up fighting. But I do recall though, and I'm just watching it there on the screen, is with the explosive barrels and stuff. I think that was what ended up getting me tricked a lot of the time. Is you'd find yourself sort of rolling away, but then fall too close to a barrier, and then they'd set it off, and you'd explode, and that was the end of you. So that was probably the one thing that I found you had to be very mindful of. But otherwise, very enjoyable tutorial style boss fight.
Yeah, I dug the way this really introduced, well, it didn't introduce, but it rammed home the whole point of you've got to work off a bit of armor to reveal the weak spot. And then once you get that weak spot, you got to move on to the next one. Brilliant tutorial level. I loved it. Bully, my one question for you, has there been any sign of the big Slytherin snake here in the PSVR mountain? Call of the mountain.
Not that I've seen yet, but I haven't progressed probably too much further than last week. So
I just think he would look amazing. Don't you think this guy would be amazing in VR, mate?
Oh, to be honest, all of them that I've seen look amazing in VR. But yeah, 100%. If you could get, I don't know how you do it in VR with a boss fight like this, or how you manage it, or how they would put it in, but it would be absolutely amazing to see that in VR. I agree.
Heck yes. Andy's, sorry, I'm jumping a bit all over the shop here, but slight shout out just to Atomic Heart. That I'm still at that area where you're trying to get out and there's the big worms thing shooting through the tunnels. They've killed me about 80 times, but I'm loving it. All right. Entrant number 3 this week, Unky. Whom is fighting in the third slot?
We have Goma, the first boss from Zelda Ocarina of Time back in the day. So this is one where you've worked your way through the Deku tree, I believe, and you come up to this, or it's the first dungeon. It could be Deku Tree. It may not be Deku Tree. I can't quite remember, but it's definitely the first boss you encounter. And he, again, lets you use all the mechanics you had up to that point, which is your sword and your little crossbow. Not your crossbow, your, what do you call it? Dennis the Menace had one.
Slingshot.
Slingshot, that's the one. Just where he hides in the dark and you hear a little scuttling, you don't know what's going to happen, and then he opens his eye. There's my mechanic, but you sort of had to knock him off the roof with the eye and then go attack him with your sword. And I think you had the old Mario, you have to do it 3 times before he goes down. But this for me was enjoyable and quite a scary little moment as a kid playing this, especially as I hate fighters. But the fact that this thing sort of comes crawling in, the music goes all dull and sort of moody. I really enjoyed this boss fight. I still remember it to this day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The mood, the atmosphere that they got across in this boss fight, I would argue is second to none in this list. Bully, any thoughts?
Agree, and it's one of those things that I think if you're going to put a good boss fight basically at the end of a tutorial, you need to utilize the mechanics that you've been taught up until that point. And this does a fantastic job of it with your lock-on targeting and controlling the camera and moving the camera around and that sort of stuff. So I think in terms of, yes, it's atmospheric and all that sort of stuff. And the first time you saw this, if you were playing this back in the late 90s as a first experience rather than sort of getting back into it with newer gen consoles, it doesn't look that great graphically, but at the time it was fantastic and certainly displayed the skill set that you were allowed to then evolve over time while you're playing through the game itself.
Yeah, perfect summary, mate. All right, number 4, Final Fantasy VII.
FF7 or the remake, which made it look arguably a lot better this time around. But the guard Scorpion after you sort of your first foray into Final Fantasy VII bosses, and this thing was big and bombastic, but just in the remake, it was just such a cool fight, just to sort of be moving around with Barrett and sort of utilizing his skills and switching back to your skills and the lighting effects and the particle effects.
Could you switch companions in Final Fantasy VII? I'm joking.
I was going, oh God, I thought you were serious.
I don't even know at this point. He doesn't even does he read? Does he read the manuals? Does he even pay attention to the tutorials? I don't know what's going on anymore. Whether he's being serious.
The fact that I thought he was being serious says a lot. But no, this was good. This was obviously a much smaller boss compared to what you do fight for the rest of the game, especially towards the end of the game. But this was such a cool way to sort of bring. I know there was a demo they released for this game as well, which this was sort of the end part of that. And I think it was such a good way to sort of have a demo come out because it did sort of show what this game was going to be about. And it's a perfect way to do it. It's this big boss very early in the game, and it really does.
And those lighting effects.
Light effects were really nice.
Oh, yes. Bully, any points from you on this one?
No, again, it's one of those ones that it was difficult until you actually got a handle on the control system itself and how to work it and all the rest of it. And it looks like Unky's got a little visitor in the background there. But again, a good tutorial and to have it, have that tutorial phase end up with this massive boss fight. It's always amazing once you've worked your way through the minions, and then you get to like these, enemies that take up, for in essence the entirety of the screen. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, phenomenal. And just a little shout out. I know it's not on the list, but I've just been reminded of it looking at this footage again. Blanking on The Ascent, the big snake, the spider boss, first spider boss in The Ascent was phenomenal. It just looks like this. Sorry, this is obviously a much better version of that though. But what is number 5, Unky?
Number 5, we have Bloodborne, the Cleric Beast, or as Troy calls him, the Clerical Beast, which is something completely different. Now, this is again.
He certainly sent me to heaven a couple of times.
So no, definitely he's one of those bosses. But this was a great mechanic in the fact that you come across this guy. He's almost insurmountable for any new Bloodborne player for the very first time. I think he almost is the one where you are supposed to die the first time you find him. You can beat him. By all accounts, a lot of good Dark Souls players will beat him first go, but you can't start upgrading your character until you've at least lost to this guy once. But once you've lost to him once, the mechanic opens up where you can then go and grind and get your character sort of leveled up and then fight it, which I thought was a great way to do it because you fought your way to get to him, and then you don't go home with nothing. Like, it's not like, oh god, I got to go back to scratch.
Yeah.
But then that mechanic does open up where you can sort of start going. That whole sort of start area to Bloodborne is embedded into my mind. I can still see it, like where I got to go, what enemies are there, and what I would do to sort of get my souls effectively to rank up. And then when you go back and do fight him sort of beast up, it does have that power fantasy moment where you're like, oh yeah, I can take this guy now. And I just thought such a great intro boss to a lot of the other bosses. Like, his mechanics aren't easy to do. Like, he does have that soul stuff where if you stay close to his feet, you probably can get him, but he does have a couple of AoE attacks that can get you. But yeah, if you can get through this guy, then I think you can probably say you could finish, Bloodborne with, I'm not going to say not too much difficulty, but I mean, this is definitely a hard stopgap, but you can get around it.
But those fur physics, look at it. And Bully, just have a look down the release schedule, mate. When are we due for the re-release of this, the up-resed version of Bloodborne? I want a date on that, please.
So do I. I've been waiting years for it.
I love it, Unky. I second your points, mate, but I've got nothing more to add. Bully, anything from you on the Clerical Beast? Was there a clerical error on your side?
Oh, the clerical error was my gameplay, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, to be honest, in terms of the bosses, though, like as hard as he was to especially if I think this was my sort of first Soulsborne type game that I played. So
really,
not having really gone into any Dark Souls 1 or 2 or Demon Souls at that point,
whoa,
I had no idea what to expect or what I was getting myself into, and was struggling to wrap my head around the rest of the level, let alone when you get up to this, the first boss, and then trying to defeat. My head was just exploding as to what was going on, and it only got worse with the next one with Father Gascoigne. I still can't beat him. I still need someone to step into my game and
I've
help
told
me
you
out.
about that infinite loop, haven't I? I eventually died enough times that I worked out you could just cut a counterclockwise lap, and you get 2 hits in, then drop off the roof and circle back around 2 more hits, and you can just do that. It takes you about 45 minutes, but you eventually drop it.
Well, I might try that when they give me the re-release of it for the PS5.
Very good. I love it. Entry number 6, Unky.
Entry number 6 is the first Colossus in Shadow of the Colossus. So again,
I think it's Colossi.
Sorry, Colossi. What a sad way to start a game where, like, yeah, you got to go out and kill these guys. But this guy was just a big, lungering, gentle giant, and you just stab him in the head and kill him. And
do you know who it reminds me of?
Who's that?
Hold the door. Hold door.
Oh, Hodor.
Yeah.
No, it's just, again, this boss teaches you how the game essentially is going to work, where you are only fighting these giant colossi, and it's it's brutal. It's one of the easier fights, but it sort of has those it helps you with those mechanics of climbing and utilizing that sword as well. And it's not only awe-inspiring to see this thing as big as it is and to be climbing it. It's just one of those moments in gaming. I think if you've played this game, you'll remember this moment in gaming pretty much for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to say, shout out to Shadow of the Colossus, a game that required 0 reading or tutorial screens. You just work it all out through gameplay. Nothing was missed. Bully, any thoughts from you on Shadow of the Colossus?
Oh, you pretty much covered it well. It's just that amazing, the first time you see that, it's the first Colossus you see, obviously, and just absolutely amazing. Sets it up for the rest of the game with what to expect with the others that you roll into, and it sort of gives you a bit of an insight, as most tutorials do, I suppose. But it gives you an insight as to how you've sort of go about tackling them. It gives you a good grounding for the rest of them, even though you sort of got to go about it in different ways. It certainly does give you good grounding.
Yeah, and now I know this isn't this week's standoff, and I'm going off on a tangent, fellas, but just quickly, straw poll, best Colossus in Shadow of the Colossus, your favourite one. For me, it was the big, what was he? Flies through the air, but he looks like a stingray, the big stingray looking guy. I think he was number 6. He's my personal favourite, fellas. Favourite bosses?
Yeah, I think you stole mine.
Fair enough. Fully?
Same.
I can't remember which one it was. No, I'm struggling. Was it the horse one? It might have been the second or third one.
No, I think the number 4, I think, is the horse with the 2 domes, and you got to go in and under and get him to pound the ground. That one?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's number 4. But yes, an amazing boss. I love it. Sorry, back to the real standoff for this week. Standoff entry 7. It's a me, Mario.
The first big stopgap in Mario 64, Mr. Big Bob-omb himself. So the top of the mountain in level number 1, you come across this big ugly brute of a bomb, which I think he's actually setting you up for the Bowser fight. We have to grab his tail, but this guy, you got to get behind him, you got to grab him, then you just got to throw him like half a meter, I think, 3 times, and he dies and turns into a star. So I'm pretty sure I remember throwing him off the actual ledge.
Yeah,
back when I played it.
Definitely doable.
For whatever reason, the gameplay
doesn't kill him.
So you do need to actually throw him onto the ground, do you?
Yeah. I replayed it when they released the 3D All-Stars, and if you throw him off the edge, you basically have to, in effect, restart, climb back up the hill, and then he's back there again.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Well, I reckon, this one is setting you up for the fact that, your main mechanic against Bowser is going to be grabbing that tail and then spinning him around. So good way to set you up. The rest of the level does obviously set you up for all the other mechanics in the game, but this was a nice little cute... I'm going to say this is probably one of the easiest bosses I've ever fought, let's be honest.
Yes, he definitely was. Certainly no woe-long tears from me on this bloke.
Only took Troy an hour and a half to defeat this one.
Now, Unky, it's a bit unconventional, but what do you say we throw over to Bully for standoff entry 8?
I was already going to do exactly that.
Over to you, Bully. Entry 8.
Well, just, something different. Well, we've got a Witcher 3 entry on there. Beast of White Orchard as the entry there for the Witcher 3. Again, I don't think... I put a little bit of time into the Witcher 2, but certainly not as much as what I was going to end up playing in the Witcher 3. So it was very similar sort of to Bloodborne in some respects that I didn't know what so much to expect, and the mechanics of it you really sort of need to get used to and work out the the oils and the potions and all that sort of stuff. But certainly when you tackle this beast of a griffin in the opening section of White Orchard was amazing, and again set the tone for the remainder of the game with some of the fantastic beasts that you would end up challenging and beating and encountering across many hours of your journey.
And what I specifically love about this particular guy is he was the one that forced me to learn, and I don't remember which potion it was, but the critical of reading the beast, what's a bestiary, I think, the Wikipedia of the bestiary, to find out which potion to drink. So when you're fighting him, and then how crucial that is for the entire game and every boss you fight. But it is this tutorial boss that absolutely nailed that point home for me. It even got through to my level of thinking.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think the first time, I was just going to say quickly, the first time I ever played it, I think you just got the crossbow, and I tried to take him down with just the crossbow, which does almost no damage whatsoever. And, I was sitting there, I reckon 40 minutes I was trying to take this punter down with a crossbow before I actually, same as you, Troy, worked out, read the bestiary, work out what the oils and the potions are, and then, attack him that way.
Yeah. Clue was in the book. Unky, any points from you on this one, mate?
I just think this whole thing, the whole first boss, he had its own story surrounding it and the way you had to sort of track it and everything as well. And then it sort of all culminated as this one big fight where you sort of use all your mechanics you've been learning up until this point as well. And I just think the piece de resistance is the coming back into the town with the griffin around you, hanging behind your horse as you ride in. And it's part of the trophies, trophy mechanic that you use from defeating other beasts in the game. You can attach these trophies to give you special abilities. I just think was just the icing on the cake.
5% XP buff, if memory serves.
Sounds about right.
Entry number 9. Bit of
Number
last
9.
year's Game of the Year, second place.
Yeah, well, this is God of War 3. So Poseidon's actually been on one of our lists before as most fun boss fights, but he is the first boss that you fight, and he is effectively a tutorial boss. This whole thing is essentially a boss fight, but you are sort of learning the mechanics of the game. And funnily enough, when you defeat this boss, you actually do lose all the abilities that you've been using up until this point. You go back to sort of being baby's first Kratos after this. So this is showing you this whole way what the game's going to be like when you sort of get all your powers back. And what a bombastic way to start a game. Like, this still is one of the best openings to a game, I think, ever in relation to, especially this era of game and what it did at this point of the game. Just to throw Poseidon at you like this, and the way it all sort of culminates into, the first person stuff as well is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a heck of a lot of fun. I don't recall, though, any specific mechanics that I had to master to get through it. I think it's my standard God of War. You could just sort of mash your way to victory, essentially. So a very enjoyable boss, but I don't think from a tutorial mechanics tutelage standpoint, it's at the high level for this one. How about you, Bully? Any thoughts on Poseidon here?
No, I agree. I can't recall any specific mechanics, and I don't know if it really teaches you that much beforehand, but it's just a hell of a lot of button mashing as the first couple of God of Wars end up sort of devolving.
So the mechanics, so the mechanics of God of War.
Well, I'm sure there's some, if you did a certain sequence that'd actually get you somewhere, but if you just keep hitting bang, bang, boom, 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 you'll get there eventually. But just the size and the scale of it.
I can confirm it does work.
Just the size and the scale of the boss. We've seen in this list already some massive bosses, but the fact that you're in essence taking on half a mountain is something that you don't really see very often, if at all, in games, and certainly with God of War and Kratos, he's it's just a taste tester of what's to come through the rest of it.
Indeed, and it did for me harken back to the previous entrant of Shadow of the Colossus, entrant number 6 from this evening. This felt like an homage to Shadow of the Colossus when I booted up this one for the first time. The 10th and final entry, Unky, for this week?
We have Khotun Khan from Ghost of Tsushima, and Troy, you'll like this one, because this one, it doesn't matter if you lose to him, because the game plays on no matter what, and most people are supposed to lose to this one. So this was cool. I watched the footage for this, I think it was just this morning I was watching the footage of this, and I'd forgotten how cool the story moment was here, where he calls him out to fight, and learning those parry mechanics and stuff for the first time, and trying to take this guy on and thinking you've got him. You hit him with a couple of heavy attacks, and you think, I've got this guy, but then he just keeps hounding on you. Eventually pins you up against the bridge and throws you overboard. But I know people have gone back. You can do it. I think there's a story arc that happens where no matter if you beat him or not, you still get thrown off the bridge. So, yeah, Troy, this one's there for you. But not only that, it does culminate in some great mechanics that you learn very early in the game for this game.
It does, but for me, and I cannot remember, I was just trying to think of it then, it's not coming to mind, whatever the first game was that introduced the idea that you have to die to the boss to progress the narrative. It was many years before this, whatever it was, but I'm in the habit now of every time I come across the first boss, I deliberately run up, no weapons out, to let them kill me just in case that's the move on mechanic. So in this instance, I just ran in, deliberately died, and the story progressed and I moved on. So I, sort of lost my own fight there. Bully, any thoughts?
No, it's funny, but it's probably one of the only ones that we've spoken about, though, that it sets up the rest of the game, in essence. Like, the rest of them will set it up in a mechanic sense and working through the tutorial, but it actually sets up the remainder of the game and who that ultimate, ultimately the end boss or the end game is, and the remainder of the game, you sort of work your way through trying to get back to in a sense, fighting him again. So that it sort of sets up the game from that perspective.
Yeah, great point, mate. That is it. That is the 10th winner. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that we're going to back Bully for number 8. The Witcher 3. It's got to be the biscuits this evening, doesn't it, Unky? Where are you sitting?
Well, I was going to go Cleric Beast is my favorite tutorial boss. But I'm more than happy to sit with The Witcher because that is not just a boss, that is a whole story arc, and just everything about it is just such a beautiful way to open a game and teach the mechanics of that game. And a game that has that many mechanics, the fact that it teaches you so many of them just with that very first boss encounter, I think sort of speaks wonders to it. But I'm happy to give it to Bully if he wants to give him his third win in a row. I think he gets on the right side of the standoff, I think.
Well, it's actually funny you say that because I was getting prepped to go. It won't be The Witcher. Where else am I going to go? And I was actually going to go across to the Cleric Beast.
Oh no! I'm happy to switch.
Well, you've laid it down now. Troy's there as well. I think we'll give. We haven't given The Witcher anything for a while. I think we're going to go with The Witcher. But I agree with you.
That's true.
I agree with you. That I was just going to say that it's not just the whole story behind it, but it's essentially you can hear it. And I only realised this when I went and back and replayed the PS5 version. You can actually hear it screaming around in the background.
Yes,
anywhere near before you get to the quest line or encounter it in any way, shape, or form. So it's there from the very start of White Orchard, and it's only obviously after progressing through the storyline that you actually work out what it is and all the rest of it. So.
Bully,
agreed.
Bully, are you sure it's the beast and not just the winds howling?
I don't know. I think last time I played it was dark and I was scared of any sound coming out. So it could have been the winds howling. It could have been the screeching. I don't know. It could have been my pants pooping. I don't know.
Oh, wild. All right, then. I think it's a unanimous decision this week. The Beast of White Orchard, Witcher 3. A winner is you for the standoff. Congratulations. Your prize is inbound. Newsflash, there is no prize. All right. That brings us over to audience integration. And I can't find my button for it. So, Bully, what's happening in that there YouTube chat, my friend?
I'm just going to call it out. Sorry, can I just jump in real quick? Tagara every week says it's interrogation, not integration. So I had to say Troy. I think Troy says it differently every time somehow. But
I can tell you why if you like, but let's leave it a mystery.
Oh, leave him hanging. Well, it appears we've just had, in essence, a fourth host tonight because I've just been sitting there in the intervening periods of you guys talking, and it's just been me and Tigara having a chat back and forth for the hour and a half or so that we've been on
Was
there.
it about I'll give you video games, or were you talking about the cricket?
Well, there was a little bit of cricket in there, which, mind you, Kawaja's on 96, so we'll have to see how this goes. You might get a rapturous round of applause and a G.E.A. in a minute, depending on how the next couple of balls go. We were just talking about with the storylines in The Last of Us, the HBO, and the difference between the game and the HBO series itself, that he really enjoyed some of the story elements that weren't in the game that they've sort of expanded on, especially with the Bill and Franks. And that he can never see Ron Swanson in the same light again, and he had to drink. He had to drink half a bottle of booze just to get himself over that. He did give me a bit of an update on the cricket score, but that's a little while ago. We're almost 80 runs ahead of where we were there. So thanks for that, because I can't watch the cricket while I've got the other four screens going, unfortunately. So thank you very much for the updates there. And then he's when you were talking before about some of the Steam games, Troy, that you've started doing the Let's installs for, he's thrown a couple of others in the mix there. Is Must Do Death in the Water 2.
Never heard of it, but I will add it to the list. Thank you.
Well, he said, have a look. Very good game that you survival suspense game, 360 perspective, obviously being in the water. And very Shrinkter cleansing at times, especially in those open water segments. And he's also thrown in there Impossible Creatures, which is a bit of an older RTS style game, which I haven't seen. Not sure if you guys are aware of it.
No, that's news to me.
So that might be worth one having a bit of a look at. And just on the back end there as well, he was really enjoying the Resident Evil playthroughs in the morning, although he's telling me there's no way he's getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch it. And he's given you a little bit of a tip, Troy, that you need to check all the cabinets because you're missing items and various things by not checking all those cabinets? And can you please start later than 5 a.m. so that you can watch it when you're actually doing it?
Well, yes, I can no longer do it at 5. I broke myself this morning. You see me quite clearly break on camera and then pull the pin. So I won't be doing the 5 a.m.s, but I would like to work it back. I do want to get through 2 and 3 remake before 4 comes out. But I think we're only, 2 weeks from 4 coming out at this point? Is it the 23rd of this month, I believe?
Yep, 2 weeks. And just before we jump out of the audience, interrogation, integration, interception, whatever we're calling it this week. Once again, another massive shout out to Tigaro for that donation. Very much appreciated, and certainly helps to keep the lights on and the cameras running in Troy's Them There studio.
Indeed, and it's getting hot, but I've got the aircon running tonight, and I don't know if you boys noticed, but there was, to my monitor, my preview monitor wasn't stammering tonight as it was last week, so I got the aircon blowing hardcore on the back of the monitor, so I think we've got it over the line. But that'll do it for this week. Tagaro, shout out to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Unky Dunky, good work in the second slot, holding that position firmly. I see you've got the second square on lockdown.
Damn straight, don't you forget it.
Thank you very much for your work in the news and the standoff. As always, Unky Dunky, the producer with the most on the show by far, is a good self. Thank you, sir. And Bully, bringing in the third slot, holding the 2 hosts above you up. Without you, mate, we'd be falling to the floor. So thank you very much. And good work on the Let's Plays.
Yes, to make sure you check out the channel. We've got heaps of videos going up daily, so jump on there as well. And I do have some rather large shoulders, so I can keep you up. But what I'm going to do, just to make sure I get that second slot again, when we all jump out of the system for this one, I'm going to re-jump into it, leave it sitting there for a week, and you will not bump me out of that second slot this time.
What you don't know, Bully, is if you actually jump in before me, you'll be in the top slot. All right, there's too many secrets being revealed. We better be off. Unky Dunky, do one live, mate. What else can you do with the channel?
Like it, subscribe it, you'll never miss it.
Oh, that was luck. Hey, that's something. Oh, look out! Old Uncle Dunky. Unky Dunky.